Association and the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation would like to welcome you to Reality Czech, a gala event that marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of Czechoslovakia. We would like to introduce you to our MCs for the night.
Our first MC is a puppeteer, playwright, and director of the Czechoslovak American Marionette Theater based in New York City. He also played Kojak, the head of the KGB, in Woody Allen's film Don't Drink the Water. Please put your hands together for Vít Horčík.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my co-host for tonight. She is a two-time Tony Award winner for the Best Actress in a Musical. Many of you will have seen her in Miloš Forman's multi-Oscar winning film Amadeus, where she played the part of Caterina Cavalieri. Please welcome Christine Ebersole.
To be here, and I just wanted to start out the evening by sharing a little story with you. As you heard, I was in the movie Amadeus with Miloš Forman, and the first day of shooting in Prague, he came to me and he called me Kristinko. That was the nickname he had for me, and he said, Kristinko, I want to tell you, there is a way to have the people absolutely love you. All you have to do is say this one little phrase in Czech. I said, okay, what is that? So he told me what it was. I walked into the room and everybody was there and I said, Ja nejsem beverka. So for those of you who don't know, that means I am not a squirrel. So, I just thought I would share that with you. So, it is such an honor to be a part of this Reality Czech celebration of the 100th anniversary of the founding of Czechoslovakia.
It seems a bit odd to have a big event to celebrate an anniversary, a birthday of a country that doesn't exist anymore. But at least the divorce was amiable.
We are also here to celebrate the achievements of the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation, a tiny non-profit with a huge heart whose mission is to honor, preserve, and build on the legacy of playwright, dissident, and former president of Czechoslovakia and the Czech Republic, Václav Havel.
We honor the Foundation's dedication to democratic values, human rights, cultural diplomacy, and artistic freedom. And with the presentation of the Disturbing the Peace Award for a courageous writer at risk, we continue to bring awareness to all of those individuals who have fought for freedom of expression and other rights in an exemplary, inspiring manner.
And most importantly, we honor Secretary Madame Albright for her unparalleled contribution to the return of the Czechs and Slovaks to the democratic societies of the world. The Foundation would like to extend their sincere thanks to all of you in this room here tonight. It is because of your generous contributions that the Foundation is able to keep promoting awareness of Havel's contribution to the global community from the 20th to the 21st century.
We would like to honor some special guests here this evening. Maria Šatardová, the ambassador of the Czech Republic to the UN, Miroslav Rameš, Consul General of the Czech Republic in New York, Věra Jourová, the EU Commissioner of the Czech Republic, Ladislava Begec, Consul General of the Slovak Republic, and former US Ambassador to the Czech Republic, William Lewis, Craig Stapleton, William Cabanis, and Andrew Shapiro.
We would also like to thank the following table patrons and sponsors whose generosity fuels the future projects of VHLF. Craig and Dorothy Stapleton, Joseph Balaz, William and Catherine Cabanis, Jack and Patricia Stack, Interlock Partners LLC, Inobat Ingamberdieva.
Andrew Shapiro and Tamar Newberger, Berke Farah LLP, the Hartford Foundation, Geoffrey Huguet, and of course, all of you who supported the Havel Foundation by buying tickets to tonight's event.
The Havel Foundation has forged meaningful relationships with organizations and individuals who are aligned with the vision of Havel across North America. They are deeply invested in the local community and the Central European communities that call NYC a home away from home. They are deeply connected to the city and its diverse population.
It gives us great pleasure to welcome the Deputy Commissioner at the Mayor's Office for International Affairs to read the mayoral message from Bill de Blasio. Julie Bolson.
Thank you and good evening. It's a thrill to be here this evening and to share this very inspiring occasion with our honored guest, Secretary Albright, Liao Wu, Secretary Kissinger, and our many other distinguished attendees. As we celebrate the legacy of Vaclav Havel tonight, we recognize that the struggle for human rights and dignity is ongoing. We also acknowledge the indispensable role of the arts and of our civic institutions in uplifting individuals and connecting communities as we continue in this unfinished work toward freedom and democracy. I'd like now to share a special message from our Mayor, Bill de Blasio, for this evening. Dear friends, I'm delighted to welcome everyone as the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation and the Bohemian Benevolent and Literary Association host Reality Czech, a gala celebrating the 100th anniversary of the founding of Czechoslovakia. New York City is the proud home to thriving populations of Czech and Slovak Americans that have made invaluable contributions to every sector of life in the 5 boroughs. Tonight, I'm pleased to join with members of these vital communities as they commemorate the centennial of the establishment of Czechoslovakia and share their rich heritage with our diverse residents. This evening's program will also pay tribute to the legacy of the Czech statesman and playwright Václav Havel and celebrate his unwavering commitment to advancing human rights, democracy, and of course, the power of theater. As you gather in fellowship to honor an important milestone, I commend everyone associated with organizing this wonderful event that uplifts Czech and Slovak New Yorkers, enhances the cultural vibrancy of our global city, and exemplifies the values of liberty, justice, and inclusivity that unite us all. On behalf of the City of New York, I offer congratulations to Secretary Madeleine Albright, Liao Wu, and all of tonight's honorees. Please accept my best wishes for an inspiring and meaningful celebration. Sincerely, Bill de Blasio, Mayor of New York City.
Before we embark on the official program, we will need some sustenance for the journey, so the Bohemian spirit will now serve the main course. Dobro chuť.
Bon appetit, we'll be back shortly.
It is now time to start the official proceedings. We promise you a concise and entertaining program.
Please welcome to the stage New York City Council member Ben Callows, who is one of the main sponsors of the Foundation's Rehearsal for True Theater Festival.
I'm hoping that Pavla and Joseph could join me up on stage to accept a proclamation from the city of New York. I wanted to thank Pavla Nikolova, the Executive Director, and Joseph Bala, the President of Bohemian Benevolent and Literary Association, as well as the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation. I am so honored to represent this neighborhood and this Bohemian National Hall, and I could not say no to an invitation to this reality Czech gala. I think that all of us, despite what may be happening on a federal level or what may have been on TV all day today and radio and internet, we're a nation of immigrants. And my grandparents came from Hungary and Russia. When they fled anti-Semitism 2 generations ago, my wife came from Ukraine when she fled anti-Semitism some 25 years ago. And when folks come to America, they need a place to welcome them. And for 125 years, that has been the role of this organization. And I'm proud to provide modest funding from the City of New York. We should be doing more as a city to support our cultural and immigrant organizations. And so I wanted to come here. I also wanted to take a moment to greet one of the most inspiring women in the United States of America, Madeleine Albright. I couldn't help but stop by. And so this is a proclamation, and the print is too small for me to read, so I won't go through it, but it ends with just, be it known that the City Council of New York proudly celebrates the Bohemian Benevolent and Literary Association following their 125th anniversary.
And now it gives me great pleasure to the woman who has spearheaded the Rehearsal for Truth Theater Festival, Executive Director of the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation, Pavla Nikolova, to tell us all about the varied initiatives of the VHLF. Pavla.
Thank you, Christine and Reed, for being with us tonight. Thank all of you for coming to the Reality Czech Gala. The photo over there was taken 4 years ago at the Gala in Washington, D.C., when the Havel Foundation, together with the American Friends of the Czech Republic, dedicated the Havel bust in the U.S. Congress. I'd like to acknowledge all of the people in that photograph: Wendy Lures, Joseph Balash, Lisa Stone, and Michaela Boruta. All of them are here tonight, and many new people have joined us, either as board members or volunteers who have been helping us to care about Václav Havel legacy. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I can't name you all. And I'll try to be brief and say just a few words about what we've done and what we've achieved in those past 4 years. We are continuously working on collecting materials and memories on Václav Havel with our oral history project, Havel Conversations. We have interviewed politicians like Bill Clinton and Henry Kissinger, who's happened to be here with us tonight. Welcome. We interviewed academics Timothy Snyder or Lee Bollinger and artist Susan Vega or translator Paul Wilson. Our interviews now serve as a material for students not only at Florida International University, where they are housed, but anywhere in the world. They were included in the Digital Public Library of America platform and thus became a part of American intellectual heritage. We are extremely proud of that. We keep initiating Havel's monuments around the world. The recent and immensely important one was dedicated today at Columbia University by Secretary Madeleine Albright. We cherish Václav Havel's dedication to human rights around the world. Every year, the foundation recognizes writers who have suffered unjust persecution for their beliefs. This year, we consulted with 4 institutions prominent in literature and human rights: Freedom House, PEN International, Václav Havel Library, and Words Without Borders. We are grateful to this year's jurors, Burhan Sonbaz, James Reagan, and Deborah Treisman, who had the difficult task of selecting one of the 5 shortlisted writers at risk. Václav Havel was, of course, a man of theater. We believe that he would love the idea of establishing a showcase of Central European theater at the Bohemian National Hall in New York. Everybody wants to perform in New York. We are hosting the 2nd year of the festival that we call Rehearsal for Truth. Artists have always tested different political regimes. That's one of the many reasons why we admire them and why we need them. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. a stage reading of the play Pankrácz Codified will be presented at the Czech Center Gallery by the New School Drama. In the evening, the Astorka Corso Theatre will present a brilliant play by controversial Austrian playwright Thomas Bernhard. On Saturday afternoon, the Hungarian company Hopart will take us for a walking musical tour around the neighborhood. And in the evening, we will finish the festival with Cezary Goes to War by Komuna Warszawa. Please give a round of applause to these companies and the festival partners who are here tonight. Please come and support their exceptional work. Now I would like to invite one of our board members, Mrs. Lisa Stone, who was President Havel's advisor, and she will tell you a little bit more about our activities and about our goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pavla. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have invited you here for an evening of learning, some entertainment, some fun, and we must be candid with you. We're trying to build this foundation. So thank you for all of you who have paid to participate, to join this evening. It's really, really important. We want to continue to grow the foundation, which lives and exists to serve the mission, the ideals of Václav Havel, supporting democratic principles, supporting freedom of expression and human rights, and supporting the expansion of his ideals worldwide. We work across North America. We work in collaboration with the Vaclav Havel Library in Prague. We are a small organization, and we don't have a fancy screen to allow you to see the results of what I'm about to ask you to do. But in your bags, there is a piece of paper that looks like this, and it has very simple instructions. I think you have them on the screen behind me too. And I would invite you now to bring your phone out and do what we do at galas. And if you don't know how to text to donate, ask the person next to you. All you do is, I did it myself tonight. You type in the phone number on your text, then you put VHLF, that's for Václav Havel Library Foundation. And if you can give us anything to support our programs and our services, we will do more with it, with our one-person staff and our board and our volunteers. So thank you for all your support. Please support us.
Thank you, Lisa. Your support will enable us, in Václav Havel's words, to put on plays that meet certain standards of urgency, that are intellectually penetrating, complex, challenging, and powerful. And so now I'd like to introduce the Shvanda Theatre from Prague. They have had a wonderful footprint at this year's festival. We saw the play reading Night of the Funeral by Natalia Kotsa presented by a titled theatre company number 61 on Tuesday evening. And last night we got to experience the brilliance of their double bill Protest Dead by Vaclav Havel and Marek Hejduk. You will see a short extract from the dialogue between two of Václav Havel's characters, two writers who are undergoing their rehearsal for truth. Enjoy.
Kozel! Tesař! Tesař!
Kozel!
Assistant!
We look forward to working with you.
I beg your pardon? The news of your appointment is already up on all the websites.
Mr. Manik, you are the most qualified for this position. No one knows more about them than you. No one has had more experience with them.
Documentation and archiving.
They follow you on every step, detain you at 2 in the morning, interrogated you for hours and hours on end.
War clocks.
Convicted you, locked you up, you sat behind bars for resisting them more than anyone else.
Document archiving and destruction policy.
Assigned more agents to you, wrote more reports about you.
Specimen signature.
Tapped your phone.
Business phone usage.
Rounded you up first on the national and international holidays.
Personnel administration.
While at the same time, aggressively tempting you to retake your place among the flock of obedient sheep.
Code of conduct.
But you then finally shoved you out of the country, having failed to break it.
Use of motor vehicles and transportation benefits.
But you didn't just sit there and take it.
Internal auditing system.
You slapped them in the face, punched them right in the solar plexus.
Evacuation plan.
They thought they had gotten rid of you by shoving you out of the country. They hoped that you would leave them alone.
And you shoved it right back up their asses.
You waited for things to die down and then came home. So they locked you up. But you defeated them.
Oh, me? No.
Yes, you. Mr. Vanik says he didn't defeat them.
What about the petition for your release in 89?
Yes.
What about the slogan, Long Live Vanik on National Avenue? And who delivered that speech from the balcony of Melancholy?
I was there.
I was there. We were there.
We were standing there right in the crowd, and the Wenceslas Square was jam-packed, and we heard them chanting, Vanik, Vanik, Vanik! You defeated them. And you know how we know? Because you are director of the institute, and we are just your assistants. So, as you can see, you defeated us.
You see, because if we had defeated you, right now you would be sitting in our police headquarters on Bartholomew Street or in a Rusinia prison with a bright light shining in your eyes and us giving you questions. But aren't Rusinia, right?
Or Bartholomew Street.
So, did you defeat us?
So, did you defeat us?
Yes.
Mr. Vanik! You are an international authority, aren't you?
Answer. Yes.
The right to Ferdinand Vanik has learned to listen. Those are the paradoxes of life.
Tell me about it.
You were nominated for the Nobel Prize. And here, in this country, you are and always will be a moral authority. On any given subject, your statements are viewed as a verdict, as something to be reckoned with, which everyone else must take account of when forming their own view on the matter.
Don't argue and answer the question. Yes?
You are just, honest, principled, fair.
Do you seek revenge on anyone?
No.
You are a true
National treasure. After all, what could help the Institute prestige more than to have Ferdinand Vanek at its head?
And what could help Ferdinand Vanek's prestige more than to be director of the Institute?
Now, Mr. Vanek, you will be a TV talk show guest, member of delegation, lecturer at international conference, contributor of newspaper columns, you will give interviews, your place will be revived both here at home as well as abroad. Your financial problems will fall by the wayside.
The news of your appointment is already up on all the websites, and tomorrow it will be in Le Mans.
So then, Mr. Vanek, now you are director of the Institute, and we will have direct influence over what people know about us. You know, Vanek, you are something as a debt for us. And now we are going to read of that.
Since 2016, the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation has recognized writers who share Havel's passionate commitment to human rights and have suffered unjust persecution for their beliefs. The award for a courageous writer at risk is given each year to a writer of a distinguished work of fiction, literary nonfiction, biography, memoir, drama, or poetry, who is courageous in dissent and has been punished for challenging an oppressive regime.
The 5 nominees for 2018 include Ahmet Altan from Turkey, Ketini Diabandi, Burundi, Canada, Patrice Nganang, Cameroon, USA, Liu Xia, China, and Lao Yiwu, China, Germany.
The award, which includes a $5,000 cash prize, supports talented individuals who embody Havel's legacy while drawing attention to the many writers worldwide who bravely fight human rights violations. Lao Yiwu will also receive a special artwork from Czech artist Katarina Kiselica.
We would like to welcome the President of the National Endowment for Democracy to introduce the winner for 2018. Please put your hands together for Carl Gershon.
Thank you so much. I feel really privileged to have the honor of presenting this award to Liao Yiwu. Liao Yiwu differs in many ways from Vaclav Havel. Havel was a playwright and an essayist, while Yiwu is a storyteller, a writer who has extensively interviewed and distilled the essence of the stunning life stories of hundreds of men and women who have lived at the margins of Chinese society over the past century. Havel's characters are middle-class people trapped in the suffocating bureaucratic maze of communist control instruments in what Havel called post-totalitarian Central Europe. In contrast, Yiwu's characters are an array of outcasts and oddballs, from martyred Christian believers and victims of totalitarian repression to professional mourners and corpse walkers, a peasant emperor, a manager of public toilets, a blind musician, a leper, a former Red Guard, and many, many more. Even Liu's stories about more conventional people illuminate the suffering of people at the bottom rung of Chinese society, as he calls it, such as the one about a retired official who described the unspeakable horrors he witnessed during the man-made famine of the Great Leap Forward in the late 1950s, when 30 million people died, and who said simply, "I think the Communist Party owes an honest explanation and apology to the Chinese people, especially the peasants." Another difference between the two involves the pivotal year of 1989. For Havel, 1989 meant the Velvet Revolution and his spectacular rise to the presidency of Czechoslovakia. For Yi Wu, the year is forever associated with the Tiananmen Massacre and the poem by that name that he wrote and then recorded, invoking the spirit of the murdered students with ritualistic Chinese chanting and howling. He then produced a video sequel called Requiem that landed him in prison for 4 years. But the similarities between Havel and Yi Wu are far more important than the differences. Each of them was drawn into politics almost inadvertently because their art brought them into conflict with a dictatorial regime that could not tolerate independent expression or a truthful portrayal of people and society. Each of them has understood that such a system, because of its aversion to truth, is vulnerable to the power of words, which Havel said can shape the entire structure of government, and also to the power of stories, which Yi Wu said has let the world know about the real China behind the economic boom, a China indifferent to ordinary people's simmering resentment. And each of them has believed in the importance of human freedom and free expression, which Havel believed was an innate impulse of all human beings. And Yi Wu has said that my starving for freedom is stronger than my physical craving for food. Most importantly, Havel and Yi Wu are linked by their respective relationships with Liu Xiaobo. Yi Wu was a longtime friend of Liu Xiaobo, a fellow writer and a signatory of many of the petitions that Liu would circulate for democracy and human rights. The most important of these petitions was Charter 08, which was inspired by Havel's Charter 77 that was issued 31 years earlier. Havel embraced Liu Xiaobo's mission and struggle, and on the 33rd anniversary of Charter 77 on January 6, 2010, he personally delivered a letter to the Chinese embassy in Prague protesting the arrest of Liu Xiaobo 2 weeks earlier. Havel then joined with the Dalai Lama and other world leaders in calling for Liu Xiaobo to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, which was awarded to him later that year. Liu was in prison and couldn't attend the Nobel ceremony, and Havel continued to demand Liu's release until his own death a year later. The Chinese regime also held Liu's wife, Liu Xia, under house arrest. And it was because of the persistent lobbying of the German government by Liao Yi Wu, her old and close friend, that she was allowed to leave China and to join him last July, 1 year after Liu Xiaobo died in a Chinese prison. Like her husband, whose death we continue to mourn, and whose legacy remains an inspiration to freedom lovers the world over, Liu Xia is a hero of truth. And in your bags, by the way, there is a book by Liu Xia which contains her poems and her doll photographs, which are really images of prison. And it's a marvelous book, and Liu Xia is with us this evening. I just want to ask her to rise. And last night at a panel that Pablo organized, it was her first public appearance since she left China. In The Power of the Powerless, Havel said that the oppressed always contain within themselves the power to remedy their own powerlessness. The communist dictatorship in Beijing is a much more repressive system than the one Havel resisted in Prague, and it is getting more repressive every day. It is neo, not post-totalitarian, and it is using digital tools of control and surveillance, such as facial recognition technology, that were not available to the communist regimes in Central Europe during Havel's time. So we don't know if living in truth will be able to empower the powerless in China. But Liao Yiwu suggests that it may be sufficient. And he may be right, because the stories he has told depict the humanity that is far too resilient and spiritually indestructible to succumb indefinitely to the arrogance and cruelty of tyrants. I have the responsibility, he said, to make people understand the true spirit of the Chinese, which will outlast the rule of the totalitarian government. Liao Yiwu has fulfilled that responsibility. He has done so by writing in truth and living in truth, and by disturbing the spurious peace of totalitarianism in China. He has earned the great honor that we give to him tonight, the award named after Vaclav Havel, which he has so richly earned. Liao Yiwu.
Thank you very much. 我不知道该说什么。事先我准备了一份发言稿，然后由我的翻译来念这个东西。我希望他不要忘记最后一段，写给基辛格先生的那一段。
To save time, I'm the translator. I will do most of the talking on his behalf. First, I want to thank the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation and members of the jury for granting me this award. This is a tremendous honor. When I first told my Chinese friends about the award, many of them were baffled because the Chinese version of Mr. Havel's book had a different title. It was called A Distant Interrogation. But I like the English title better because it's the Chinese equivalent of the phrase, creating public disturbance. Like Mr. Havel, many Chinese dissidents are being imprisoned now on charges of creating public disturbance. I was charged with the same crime in 1989 as Mr. Gershman said. I was imprisoned for 4 years for composing a poem called Massacre. During that 4 years, I endured hunger, beatings, and humiliation. I tried to commit suicide twice, but later on I discovered writing and music, and I started to interview my fellow inmates, some of them on the death row. And then I learned to play music from a monk. The writing and music kept me alive. In 2011, with the help of members of the triad, I slipped across the border to Vietnam and then ended up in Germany. I don't speak any German, but 8 of my books are published in German because I continue to publish and my fellow translator to translate a lot of my books. That these books recorded my interviews with the people from different walks of life, especially those who live in the bottom rung of society. Now I enjoyed my freedom,
And I'm very happy that my very good friend Liu Xia is going to, can do the same. And she joined me last month, and we are having a great time. And we visited Prague actually last week, and we had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Havel's brother Ivan, and he shared a picture with us about Mr. Havel. He and Mr. Havel in the early days. We really love Prague, and we will often talk that it was a miracle that the Chinese government was able to release Liu Xia. But at the same time, we also realized on the second day of her release, 2 other Chinese dissidents were imprisoned. One of them in the province of Hubei, there's a person called Qin Yongmin, was sentenced to 13 years for creating public disturbance and also for subversion of state power. Another person in my hometown, he is 55 years old. He's dying of kidney failure, but the Chinese government still won't release him. His mother right now is holding up a sign in front of prison, trying to call for his release. So each time when I think of this, I feel like I have to write, even though I know that my writing might have limited impact. But I want to follow the example of Mr. Havel. I think that both Liu Xiaobo and Havel, they share a common mission. They both drafted the charters, and they have a great influence both in Czech and in China. I hope they are now, they might be meeting in heaven. They will inspire me to continue to write. And the next thing I want to thank everybody is I'm going to play a piece of Chinese music. I'm going to play the flute that I learned when I was in prison. I learned from a monk, and it was this, playing music really kept me alive all these years. I want to share it with you. Thank you. add one more sentence that I just met Ms. Albright and I heard Mr. Henry Kissinger is also here. I just hope that you can use your influence and then to pressure the Chinese government to release the political prisoners. And thank you.
Congratulations, Lao Yiwu. We all salute your bravery. The world needs more people like Liao Yiwu and Liu Xia. When you leave the venue tonight, you will each receive a copy of Empty Chairs by Liu Xia as a gift from Grey Wolf Publishers. Thank you, Fiona McRae.
I am now honored to introduce one of my favorite Czech musicians. Please welcome the inspirational violinist and vocalist Iva Bytová.
It's Ej, lásko, lásko, ty nejsi stále. Jako hodinka mezi brýlema. Jako hodinka mezi brýlema. Voda uplyne, láska pomine. Voda uplyne, láska pomine. Jako lísteček na rozmaríně. Jako lísteček na rozmaríně. A já dila, a já dej, a já jako lísteček na rozmaríně.
Very special treat for you. Just a bit heavy. Power line running, please. Madeleine Albright gave her toy puppet theater to the Czech and Slovak community in New York. I was delighted to hear that, and it made shortly an appearance in my play, Dvořák in America, the New World Symphony, downtown at the legendary La Mama Theater. And here it is. And I am going to do a little preview of a show we are now rehearsing, Duke Oldřich and Wasserman and Božena, The True Story. It's an 11th century historical event that all the Czech children, like myself, heard when they were small. All the Czechs believe it. It's been embellished and embroidered by many extras. So I was also delighted this theater looks exactly the same like my mother's theater that I played with when I was a child. It has a curtain, it has lights, it has backdrops. Now we need Duke Oldřich. Unfortunately, in our collection there is no Duke, so let's see what we can get. Oh yeah, there's this very popular water goblin in the Czech folklore. Maybe he could, no, that would sound like a political comment. Let's not do that. I could be a Duke, I could be definitely a Duke, Kaspar, a Czech jester that appears in every single marionette play. I don't think we can do that, that would be a political commentary too. You'll have a good part later on, okay? All right, so we have to hire someone from outside, maybe this one here. This is a traditional, he can grow into the part, look at that. But he has many enemies who are pursuing him, so he can make himself small too. And he is a percussion instrument. And then we have the washerwoman, that's an easy casting. That's not it. Where is our washerwoman? Where is our washerwoman? I said easy casting, but they're hiding. All right, here she is. Tra-la-la, 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 tra-la-la. Now the director wants a proper Czech laundry tub that nobody's seen here, so this will serve, right? Tra-la-la, tra-la-la. Oh, who is that exquisite maiden? Oh, I'm falling in love. A strange fella, if I've ever seen one. And now we have... Oh, what is this? There is a pine trunk lying across the road. No, linden trunk. Puppets are made from linden wood. Yeah, linden trunk, of course. Or a drunk trunk. Maybe he's a robber and he could rob me of all I own, which is nothing, really. Who are you? He's a bit slow and hard of hearing, perhaps. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Oh, no, I am a patriot. Do you have a name? Oh, yeah, my name, Maciej Krzesina. And who are you? Oh, who am I? A patriot. A bit slow and perhaps hard of hearing. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Oh, no, I am a patriot. My name, Maciej, is... Oh, Maciej. I'll be Maciej. You're a Maciej too. That makes two of us. There are a lot of blokes in our village, and I've been the only Maciej. We have to drink to friendship. Well, I didn't bring anything. Well, I have a little something here. Or maybe the guy behind us could help us. Oh yeah, okay, well, let's put that here. You go first. No, you go first. Oh, I go first. You can say that twice. Maciej, I got lost in the forest. Could you show me the way to Prague? Oh, of course, you go this way, or that way. Oh, that's a good directions, yes. But I don't have time right now. I have to shovel dirt on my charcoal kiln. So, bye. A strange fella, if I ever seen one. A strange fella, if I ever seen one. And here, oh, here is that beautiful maiden. Here is that... Who are you, exquisite maiden? Bożena, my name is Bożena. And what are you doing there? Can't you see? I'm washing laundry. Oh yes, I can see that. Will you marry me? No, I couldn't possibly. Okay, giddy up. And off we go to Prague. Boom, 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 boom. And the countryside is changing. Giddy up, and look at my beautiful palace in Prague. Oh, you've grown into the part too. Up we go, we need a throne here. That's very easy. This is like 5-year-old me doing a version of this old legend, right? So I proclaim that I'm going to marry this goddess, Bożena. Oh, Your Majesty, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. What do you mean I cannot do that? I'd rather, for you, wedding is a political question. Well, I'd rather marry a Czech peasant woman who speaks our beautiful Czech language, who can say those words, like those beautiful words like Dvořák, or 373 Czechoslovakia, then a Saxonian princess. But Your Majesty, you cannot. Did you say I cannot? Who's the Duke around here? Oh, you're the Duke. You're the Duke. Oh, what's that? Who's daring to disturb our ducal proceedings here? Oh, Your Majesty, there's someone at the gate beating up the guards. Don't they have swords? Well, they're afraid of his big stick. He says he will be treated or mistreated not to a lot of 17th and 18th century idea of what 11th century humor looked like. We skip that until we get married here to our princess. And now everybody dance until your heels fly over your shoulders. And proč bychom se netěšili, proč bychom se netěšili, když nám Pán Bůh zdraví dá, když nám Pán Bůh zdraví dá, zdraví dá.
Thank you, Dee. That was simply delightful. Thank you for your performance. And a little bird told me that your company, the Czechoslovak American Marionette Theater, will be hosting the fall 2018 Centennial Heritage Festival
From October 6th through the 7th, right here at the Bohemian National Hall, and then at the Jan Hus Church from October 11th through the 27th. It's going to be magical. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you Jan Svenar. He is the Professor of Global Political Economy and Director of the Center on Global Economic Governance at Columbia University. He also served as economic advisor to President Vaclav Havel of the Czech Republic. Please welcome Jan Svenar to the stage.
Thank you very much, and let me express my gratitude and also great respect for both the Václav Havel Foundation and for the Bohemian Benevolent Literary Association for everything they've been doing. It's a pleasure for me. I was asked to introduce Madeleine Albright, and the great advantage of introducing somebody who needs no introduction is that you can say whatever you want. So I will give you some of the important facts and then give you my view of how I see Madeleine Albright. So, as you all know, she is a prolific professor, author, diplomat, businesswoman. She served as the 64th Secretary of State of the United States. In 1997 was the year when she was named the first female Secretary of State and became, at that time, the highest ranking woman in the history of the US government. I think it's fair to say she is the most accomplished woman born in Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, as we were celebrating 100 years in modern history. Being professor at Columbia, I can also say she's the most illustrious alumna in the diplomatic foreign affairs stream of studies of ever at Columbia. From 1993 to 1997, Madeleine Albright served as the US Permanent Representative at the United Nations. She was a member of the President's Cabinet at the time. She's a professor at Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. She's chair of the Albright Stonebridge Group, which is a global strategy firm operating out of Washington, D.C., but being global around the world. And she chairs the National Democratic Institute, serves as the president of the Truman Scholarship Foundation, and is member of the U.S. Defense Department's of Defense Policy Board. In 2012, she was chosen by President Obama to receive the nation's highest civilian honor, the President's Medal of Freedom, in recognition of her contribution to international peace and democracy. Now, of course, that was the highest honor until tonight. She's getting it. She has published many books, and the latest one, Fascism, is just reaching the market. Now here I'll put on my professorial hat, and occasionally you impress on the students, they really have to do something, so what I'm impressing on you is you all have to read that book. There are occasionally weaker students who don't follow the instructions, so for those of you who fall into that category, you have to buy that book. I first met Madeleine Albright when, right after she finished as Secretary of State, we succeeded in enticing her to come to the University of Michigan, where I was directing the William Davidson Institute at the time. She agreed, and Representative Tom Lantos was very instrumental in bringing her in as well. And it was truly remarkable. She, as you all know, commands incredible respect, almost awe, especially with younger people. We were walking on campus, and students would stop us and say, "Are you? Are you? Are you?" And she would say, "Yes, I am." It was one thing after another like that. Tremendous speeches, participation in numerous discussions. We had one at Columbia this afternoon as we are unveiling the Vaclav Havel bust that will be permanently located together with the bust of Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, and a few other individuals at Columbia. She was there and delivered the speech, which we immediately got the feedback was the best speech that people heard at Columbia over the last several years. So you're not dealing with just anybody when you have Madeleine Albright here. I always like to encapsulate somebody like that in what they've done and what they represent. To me, Madeleine Albright sort of reminds me of the part of Winston Churchill's memoirs, where he describes how after the arduous years he finally becomes Britain's Prime Minister and says, that night I went to bed calm and relaxed because I knew Britain was in good hands. Madeleine Albright.
Welcome to our beloved Bohemian National Hall. Madam Secretary, dear Madeleine, Draha Madlenko, I could spend hours describing and talking about why we decided and why we are so proud to give you the award and how you inspire all of us. But I actually think that there is no need to say anything except we really thank you, and you do inspire us, and again, these people came here to listen to you. So this is the award. It's from the Czech artist Daniel Hodsky. It's actually very, very heavy. It is the colors of the Czech flag. On behalf of the Bohemian Benevolent Literary Association, Vaclav Havel Library Foundation, the entire community, I just want to say in capital letters, thank you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful award. I'm delighted. And Jan, thank you very much for your kind words. I am deeply grateful to the Vaclav Havel Library Foundation for the award and for all it does to promote the legacy of President Havel. But before I go on, I have to tell the story about the puppet stage. What happened was that I actually found it in an antique store, and it was fantastic, and I had always hoped that my grandchildren would put on puppet shows. And it did have a character in it. It did have the kings and queens and the princesses and princes, but it had a vodnik, a merman. And I kept trying to find stories about the vodnik, hoping that my grandchildren would do something about it. They, of course, didn't, and I can't believe what I saw here tonight. This is where the puppet show belongs. And so I was just deeply moved by the whole presentation. So thank you, and I'm very glad that my puppet theater found a good home. I have to... and wait till I tell my grandchildren. The legacy of Vaclav Havel is embodied tonight in Disturbing the Peace Award awardee. Really, I was so deeply moved by your story and also by your incredible playing and singing, and I congratulate you on your award, and I really thank you for everything that you have done. I will, when I'm in China next, make clear to deliver your message. We gather this evening during a year of remarkable anniversaries to celebrate 100 years since the founding of Czechoslovakia. As a daughter of Prague, I grew up, as did many of you, with the story of my country's birth and of two people who made it possible: Woodrow Wilson, or as we pronounce it, Woodrow Wilson, and Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk. In real life, they had a very complicated relationship, but the connection between democratic ideals on this side of the Atlantic and the creation of a new republic in the heart of Europe was genuine. Czechoslovakia would not have come into being in the absence of Masaryk's diplomacy or without the intellectual foundation he built for a humane and democratic state. Nor would Czechoslovak freedom have been possible had not America possessed a leader who believed in a new and more honorable way of ordering relations among the nation states. I have to say that that relationship is something that has continued and is very much honored recently when we dedicated a statue of Masaryk in Washington, and when we were able to dedicate a statue of Woodrow Wilson in Prague. And so that relationship goes on. Though Masaryk died when I was only 4 months old, I always felt that I grew up with Masaryk. My family revered him. My father worked as the chief of staff to his son, Jan Masaryk. As a child, I saw Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk's picture and I thought, that is how a president should look. As I grew older and studied his career, I felt that Masaryk set the standard for how a president should lead. He was a teacher who never stopped learning, a philosopher who never stopped doing, a lover of peace who never shied away from a fight, and a pragmatist who never stopped believing in the better angels of human nature. He was an enemy to bigotry in all its guises, including anti-Semitism and chauvinism, and he was a feminist. He married an American, Charlotte Garrigue, and he took her maiden name as his middle name when they were married at the end of the 19th century. The Czechoslovak Constitution is modeled on the American one, with an exception. It had equal rights language in it 100 years ago. He applied the same conviction to world affairs. From ancient times, kingdoms and countries have differed in size, power, and wealth. But Masaryk did not accept the right of the big to bully the small. He insisted that countries be subject to the law of nations, not the sword of neighbors. For allies, he looked to his fellow citizens, but also across the Atlantic. He thought that the sons and daughters of George Washington could make common cause with the descendants of Jan Hus. And as history testifies, he was right. Under his leadership, Prague became a beacon of democracy and tolerance within a troubled Europe. But all too soon, the light it created was snuffed out. We look back now upon the symbols of deepest darkness, an umbrella at Munich, the names on a synagogue wall in Prague, a broken window in the courtyard of Chernin Palace, and a glorious spring that turned into winter in August. During the Cold War, we were tempted to despair, but my father wrote in the 1970s, and I quote, "The spark is still there. One cannot doubt it will flicker one day again into flame, and freedom will return to this land that is so essentially humane." And of course that day did come, and with it a new and more welcome images of crowds chanting slogans and rattling keys in Wenceslas Square, of bells tolling for the end of communism and ringing for freedom, and of an ex-prisoner and playwright, Masadic's spiritual son, giving new voice to his ideals. Thanks to Vaclav Havel and his generation, the barbed wire was extracted from Europe's heart, and the great institutions of the West began to open their doors. I will never forget the day when the Czech Republic joined Hungary and Poland as new members of NATO. Making a quote, President Clinton said, "America safer, our alliance stronger, and Europe more peaceful and united." Nor will I forget our newly strengthened alliance coming together to defeat ethnic cleansing and terror in Kosovo. We thought back then that the totalitarian ideologies of the 20th century were in remission, that the outmoded concepts of imperialism and spheres of interest were discredited, and that the danger of big countries gobbling up the small had been reduced. But although those evil tides were driven back, it is the nature of tides to return. The events of recent years have reminded us that the battle for freedom is never over. Democratic ideals must be pursued constantly, even though they can never be fulfilled perfectly. I am not one of those who believe that we are enmeshed in a clash of civilization, but I do believe we face a battle of ideas. To move forward, democratic societies on both sides of the Atlantic have to stand together, meet every argument with truth as best we see it, and keep faith with democratic principles, not only when it is convenient, but when it is hard. In other words, we must be true to the examples and teaching of Thomas Garrigue Masaryk and Václav Havel. So tonight, as we celebrate the bonds of friendship they forged, let us reaffirm our commitment to the principles for which they lived. Pravda vítězí. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Madeline.
My life goes on in endless song above earth's lamentation. shall I keep from singing? Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how shall I keep from singing? How shall I keep from singing?
It's such a gift to hear your voice. Thank you, Larry Yerman, for the heartfelt accompaniment.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Beat, and thank you for sharing this evening with us. And thank you again for your contributions that allow foundations to keep Havel's legacy alive in New York City and across the country. Don't forget to go to Eventbrite and enter the fundraiser drive. We now leave you in the capable hands of the Paitashi Band, a multi-talented, richly woven Slovak ensemble bringing us a wild tapestry from the varied and delightful regions of their homeland. Good night, Pete.
Good night, Christy. It was an absolute pleasure to stay with you, and safe travels, everybody. And now the dessert will be served.
Good night.